You are at a barbecue. The grill is hot. The food smells incredible. Someone hands you a skewer. You bite in. Smoky, salty, satisfying. Then they tell you what it was, and your stomach drops. It was a cricket. And suddenly, the exact same food you just enjoyed feels disgusting. Nothing about the food changed. Only your brain did. Here's the strange part. Right now, without knowing it, you eat around 1 to 2 pounds of insect parts every single year. They are already in your chocolate, in your peanut butter, in your bread, in your tomato sauce. The FDA legally permits it, because it is impossible to keep them out entirely. You have been eating insects your whole life, and it never bothered you, because you never knew. So the question is not whether insects are safe to eat. You already have your answer. The real question is something deeper. Why does knowing make it disgusting? Why does your brain refuse a food that 2 billion other humans eat every single day? And why, for most of human history, your own ancestors would have eaten them without a second thought? Stay with this to the end, because the answer reveals something strange about the way your mind actually works. And it will change how you see your own disgust reflex forever. Let's start with the fact that almost everyone ignores. Most of the world eats insects, not a few desperate villages, not a handful of extreme survivalists. We are talking about 80% of the world's countries. 2 billion people. They eat beetles, crickets, locusts, caterpillars, termites, and ants. Not because they have to, because insects taste good, because they are nutritious, and because for thousands of years they made perfect sense as food. In Mexico, chapulines, toasted grasshoppers, are sold in street markets and served in gourmet restaurants. In Thailand, fried insects are a casual everyday snack on nearly every corner. In parts of Africa, mopane worms, fat, plump caterpillars, are a prized and celebrated dish. In Australia, Aboriginal communities have eaten witchetty grubs for over 60,000 years. These are not desperate survival choices, these are cultural traditions, passed down through generations, enjoyed, celebrated, looked forward to. And from a pure nutrition standpoint, insects make almost no sense to avoid. 100 grams of cricket contains more protein than the same amount of beef. Crickets are packed with iron, zinc, calcium, and vitamin B12. They contain healthy unsaturated fats. Some species have more omega-3 per gram than salmon. By almost every nutritional measure, insects are not just acceptable food. They might be superior food. So why don't you eat them? Here is what's fascinating. The answer has almost nothing to do with the insects themselves. It has everything to do with a force inside your brain that you almost never examine. A force so powerful it can make you reject food, even food you already enjoyed, the moment you learn what it is. Psychologists call it the disgust reflex. And it is one of the most irrational, most primitive, and most deeply human forces that exists inside you. Paul Rozin at the University of Pennsylvania spent decades studying this. And what he found was unsettling. Disgust doesn't follow logic. It follows contamination. In one now famous experiment, participants were offered a glass of juice. Then a dead sterilized cockroach was dipped into it and removed. They knew the cockroach was clean. They knew it couldn't hurt them. But almost nobody would drink the juice. Their brain had already decided it was contaminated, and no amount of reasoning could reverse that decision. Insects trigger the exact same switch. The moment your brain categorizes something as disgusting, it becomes permanently contaminated in your mind, even if the substance is completely safe, even if you've been eating it for years without knowing. Even if 1 billion other people eat it every single day, disgust overrides all of it. Your brain says no, and that is final. But here's the part that should actually shake you. You were not born with that response. Children under the age of 3 will eat almost anything. Bugs, dirt, worms. They put it all in their mouths without hesitation. They have no disgust for insects. That response is learned. It is cultural. It was installed inside your brain by the society you grew up in. If you had been born in Thailand, fried crickets would feel like comfort food. If you had grown up in Mexico, chapulines would be a nostalgic childhood snack. Your disgust is not a reflection of what is dangerous. It is a reflection of where you happened to be born. Nothing more, and it goes even deeper. Because this was not always the Western way either. In ancient Rome, a delicacy called cassus was a favorite of the wealthy. It was a fat, creamy, wood-boring beetle larva. Aristocrats ate it. Pliny the Elder wrote about it approvingly. Ancient Greeks ate cicadas. They were described as tender and delicious. Aristotle, one of the greatest minds in human history, personally recommended eating them at the exact moment just before they shed their skin. These were not starving people. These were educated, sophisticated, prosperous societies, and they ate insects, proudly. Then something shifted. As European societies became heavily agricultural, built around large-scale cattle, pigs, and sheep, insects quietly disappeared from the menu. Not because of taste, not because of nutrition, because of economics, because of class. Eating insects became associated with poverty, with desperation, with people who couldn't afford real meat. And as European cultures spread across the world through centuries of trade and colonization, they carried that bias along with everything else. The disgust got exported, packaged, delivered globally, until it became the invisible default setting for billions of people who never once questioned it, including you. But here is what is truly strange. At the exact moment Western culture abandoned insects as food, it began building a food system that is quietly destroying the planet. Here is the comparison that should stop you cold. Producing 1 kilogram of beef protein requires roughly 10 times more land than producing the same protein from insects. Beef requires up to 2,000 liters of water per kilogram of meat. Insects need a fraction of that. Livestock farming is responsible for approximately 14.5% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. Insects produce almost no methane. Crickets can be raised on organic food waste. They can be farmed in compact vertical systems. They need almost no space and almost no water, and they convert feed into body mass at roughly twice the efficiency of chicken, 4 times the efficiency of pigs, and 12 times the efficiency of cattle. The food system that feels normal and clean and acceptable is actually the strange one. The one quietly hollowing out the planet. And the alternative, the one that makes your skin crawl, is the ancient, efficient, logical solution we walked away from because of a feeling. So what would it actually take to reverse that? Scientists and food researchers have been asking this exact question, and the answer is more interesting than anyone expected. Disgust is real, but it is not permanent. Studies show it is remarkably reversible through gradual exposure. When people encounter insect-based food, starting with products where insects are hidden, milled into flour, baked into protein bars, mixed into pasta, their disgust drops dramatically. The insects are invisible. The food tastes good. The brain approves. And once the brain has already decided it likes the food, learning what is in it causes far less rejection than expected. The contamination logic actually reverses. Instead of the food becoming disgusting because of the insect becomes acceptable because of the food. Right now, companies around the world are quietly putting cricket flour into energy bars, chips, crackers, and protein powders. And the science suggests this is not deception. It is the fastest known path to changing a deeply ingrained cultural reflex. The most likely way this changes is not through courage. It is through a cookie, a cracker, a bar that tastes great, something your brain approves before it knows what it is approving. And here is the final thought worth sitting with. You already eat insects every year in your bread, your chocolate, your peanut butter. The FDA permits it, and it has never harmed you, not once. Your body has no objection at all. The only part of you that objects is the part that knows. That is not biology. That is not a survival instinct protecting you from danger. That is a story your culture handed you. Quietly. Early. So deeply that it now feels like your own truth. 2 billion people eat insects every day without that story. Ancient Romans feasted on them with pride. Aristotle wrote recipes. Your ancestors foraged for them the same way they foraged for berries. And if you had been handed a different story, in a different country, a different childhood, a different language, you would eat them too, without hesitation, without disgust, without a single second thought. The insects never changed. Your brain did. And now the only real question is this. Are you still willing to let a story you were handed as a child decide what you put in your body for the rest of your life?